The year is 1986. After having successfully recreated a Microceratus, Henry Wu and John Hammond have set their sights on a dinosaur far grander, in not just physical size, but also prowess. Wu originally suggests the Velociraptor, but Hammond wants something more. Similar, but more. Now is where this story diverges from the original Jurassic Park. Henry Wu tells Hammond about a raptor much larger and scarier than any other raptor. The Utahraptor. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the classroom. Today I'll be teaching you about an alternate scenario where the Velociraptors from Jurassic Park are replaced with Utahraptors. How will this change the story? Let's find out. Before we begin, we need to lay out some information. Firstly, the size of the Utahraptors. For the four raptors, we'll use the average thought to be height and length, that being 1.5 meters, or 5 feet tall to the top of the hips, and 6 meters, or 19 feet long. Now, some of you might be thinking, shouldn't the big one be bigger? The name just refers to her status to the other raptors. Just wanted to make that clear. Now, let's see how this plays out. We open on Robert Muldoon and his team, awaiting the arrival of the newest asset for Jurassic Park. A crane appears, carrying a box that's shaking rapidly. It's placed down, and Geoffrey is lifting up the gate, when suddenly, the raptor runs at the rising cage gate, and hits it with its head. Geoffrey falls to the ground. He tries to crawl away, but the Utahraptor is able to grab his legs. He holds on to the side of the cage. Muldoon runs over and tries to help him, but the Utahraptor is too strong, and the raptor rips off his legs. Geoffrey screams in agonizing pain as he bleeds to death in Muldoon's arms. After that incident, John Hammond now needs outside experts to endorse Jurassic Park before it can open. Hammond ends up inviting Ian Malcolm, paleontologist Dr. Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler, and a lawyer, Donald Gennaro. Meanwhile, on the mainland, Dennis Nedry is being hired by Lewis Dodgson. Grant, Malcolm, Sattler, Gennaro, and Hammond arrive on Isla Nublar, ready for the tour. They first arrive at the Brachiosaurus and watch it in awe. Next, they go to the visitor center, where Hammond meets up with his grandchildren. After this, he takes them on a behind-the-scenes tour. Alan and Ellie can't sit through this presentation anymore. They want to see more living dinosaurs. They all walk inside the lab and huddle around a group of eggs, one of them starting to hatch. Alan gets to hold the dinosaur that just hatched. He analyzes its features and recognizes its feathering. He says, "What species is this?" Henry Wu says, "As a paleontologist, I'm sure you know what it is." Alan then says, "You bred raptors. Not just any raptors, Utahraptors." Everyone now heads to inspect the raptor paddock. Alan mentions that these raptors are the largest known raptors, and that this paddock is surely not large enough for the four of them. But Hammond assures him that his scientists and engineers know that it's a good enough enclosure for them. The next few parts of the movie go on as usual. They don't see the Dilos or the Rex, Ellie stays with the sick Triceratops, and the T-Rex escapes. But when Nedry crashes the Jeep and tries to get it up and running again, he notices a large figure in the tree line. It was a Utahraptor. It had the corpse of a Dilophosaurus in its mouth. Nedry couldn't move. He slowly backed away from the trees, trying to escape, but the raptor had already noticed him. All of a sudden, a second raptor came from the left, pinning Nedry to the ground. The raptor sliced open his stomach and began eating Nedry while he was still conscious. I think Alan Grant put it best.
You are alive when they start to eat you.
At an underground emergency bunker, Hammond decides that they need to reboot the power to fix what Nedry did. Ray Arnold decides to go and do it himself. After a while of the power not going on, Muldoon and Ellie decide to go out and find Ray. Once they arrive at the Utahraptor paddock, which is near the shed, Muldoon and Ellie both realize that the enclosure has been broken out of. They both can see the shed. "I bet if we run fast, we'll make it," says Ellie. Muldoon tells her to run. Ellie successfully makes it to the shed, while Muldoon tries to find and kill the Utahraptors. Muldoon walks into the woods, trying to outsmart the raptors. But his cockiness got the best of him. In front of him, he saw one of the raptors. He aimed his shotgun towards it, but two others flanked him from the side. Without a moment to think, Muldoon was devoured by the two Utahraptors. Inside the electrical shed, Ellie was able to turn the power back on, but when she turned her back, a Utahraptor snuck up behind her. It broke through the bars behind her. Ellie tried to run, but the Utahraptor was too fast. It caught up to her and put her head in its jaws. Then, it ripped off her head. Hammond and Ian were still on the other line and could hear her screaming in agony. Ellen and the kids escaped the T-Rex and made it to the visitor center, where they get a chance to eat some food. They're eventually interrupted by a pair of Utahraptors. The kids are alone since Alan decided to leave and find the others. They run to the kitchen and shut the door. They're sure they'll be safe, but they hear the door rattling. The Utahraptors can open doors. With their more powerful sense of smell than the other raptors, and their heightened intelligence, they can easily sniff out and find Lex and Tim. So, they end up in the jaws of the Utahraptors. Alan ends up returning to the underground bunker to find out from Hammond and Ian that Ellie is dead. Alan sobs for a while before realizing the kids are still alone at the visitor center. Alan runs inside to try and find Lex and Tim, but he's surrounded by the Utahraptors. There's two in front of him and one on each side. He's tried to back away slowly, but the one on the right is about to pounce, when suddenly the ground starts to shake. Hammond and Ian watch from afar as Rexy goes inside the visitor center. Alan ducks as Rexy bursts through the doors. Rexy's able to bite down on one of the Utahraptors, but the three others pounce on her back, and they start digging their claws into her. Their sickle claws slashing at Rexy's upper legs. The Utahraptors are too far from her mouth to reach them. Their claws are dug too deep, and she can't shake them. Her legs start to give out. She can't handle the slashing for much longer. Rexy goes down. The raptors were too much for her to handle. At this point, Alan had ran out of the visitor center and hopped into the jeep with Hammond and Ian. "Where are my grandchildren?" Hammond exclaimed. "I don't know. I didn't get a chance to look. I wasn't able to get past the Utahraptors. I'll get them myself." Hammond goes into the visitor center from a back entrance. He moves as quietly as he can, trying not to make a sound and alert the raptors of his presence. Finally, he reaches the kitchen, where he finds the corpses of his grandchildren, bloodied and slashed. Hammond can't control his emotions and lets out a cry. Alan and Ian both hear this. They know the raptors hear him, so they drive. Hammond knows his fate is sealed, so he stands above his grandchildren, waiting for the raptors. The big one appears and looks at Hammond. Hammond looks at her the same way he did when he imprinted on them at birth. But the raptor goes in for the kill, ending Hammond's life, his dreams, and his legacy. Well, there you have it. That was What If the Raptors from Jurassic Park were Utahraptors. Let me know if you enjoyed this style of video, or if you would change anything. That's it from me. Bye.